Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. Hey, before we get started, I've got a few coffees to shout out. People that have done a one-time support over at buymeacoffee.com/Bigfoot Society. First, we have Brian, who bought 3 coffees. Hey, Jeremiah, it's my pleasure to buy you some coffee. Have a great time at both conferences. Travel safe and keep up the amazing work. You're an important voice for the Bigfoot/cryptid community. Thank you, Brian. Christine B. bought 5 coffees. She said, thanks for the content. Getting various opinions helps to develop theories as to what people are experiencing. I think things go south when guns are involved. Fear we could cause the aggression in them as a reaction to us. Thank you for that, Christine. Thank you to Shelly S. for buying 7 coffees. I so enjoy the show and the way you bring it to us. Thank you. And thank you to Mr. Henry Franzoni for buying 3 coffees, who says, glad you had a good adventure in Central Oregon. Thank you so much for all of the supporters that were mentioned just now. And Oregon news is coming up. It'll be a little bit of time, but it is coming. So for now, let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Lisa today. Lisa's an individual that left a comment or two on a video back in the day on the channel. And so I reached out to her through, must have been an episode or maybe a comment back to her and said, hey, you know, I want to know more. And so she's been emailing me back and forth. She's been sending some really interesting thermal videos, there's a lot for us to talk about. So Lisa, I'm so glad that you're able to come on the show. You've been on a call-in show for a little bit, but I was like, man, we got to get a whole show so Lisa can share her full story. And Lisa, I'm really glad you're here today.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I was so excited and nervous when I called in, and be in line like that. But I'm 56 years old. I was born and raised down in the Bay Area, and I was in San Jose, and I had my first experience in, I think, 76 or 77, and I went camping with my friend Lynette and her brother and sister, mother, father, and aunt and uncle. And I always remembered the drive and being told, I think he mentioned her uncle who went in their car and followed her parents, and he mentioned Donner Pass. I think he was trying to, freak us out a little bit, but I never remembered spending the night. And talking to Lynette over, especially since on May 11th of 2021, I was basically, not visually, but everything else, reacquainted with the fact that these beings are real. And so, after that, really delving into that, I remember going camping with Lynette, and I brought it up, and she didn't remember me going. She remembers, she mentioned her uncle spinning her around, holding her hands and spinning her around in circles, and she was afraid he was going to toss her off the cliff. And over a period of time, I eventually remembered that, I remember standing there and watching, and she's screaming, and I think to myself, why is she, what's she screaming about? Her feet are barely going over the edge. And so, eventually we worked it out that, you know, I couldn't remember spending the night, but she couldn't remember me even going. So it was like, something's wrong with this picture, you know. And so I really, you know, I was seeking the truth. What happened? And I remembered the tent. And she asked me to describe it. And I told her it was really big and square. And, you know, I did a really good bang-up job describing it. And eventually I told her I remember laying in a sleeping bag, facing each other, her and her bag, me and mine. And she said, and we're on a video chat, so this makes it even better, because I'm looking at her and she says, I seem to remember you going, holding your finger up and pointing over my left shoulder. And then she came out in front of me on the phone and walked her fingers like in the yellow pages. And yep, that shot me back. I felt just like I must have felt that night, hearing something out there. And when I told you about it on that live call-in, I was so in a hurry and wanting to get everything out there that I didn't tell you that, you know, we went through, and I mean, she still didn't remember me being there. She knows that it happened. She has no doubt in her mind, and it really upsets her that she can't remember. Poor thing. But we went running back. You know, she said run after some things were getting thrown. And I saw the direction, but my back was up against a big boulder, and they were being thrown from behind the boulder to the right, diagonally. And she's up on a stack of logs being logged, and she sees where it came from. She had to have, because she said, run! And I had a head start, of course, because I was already on the ground. And we talked about this like 5 different times over a period of, I don't know, 3 months. And so I'm thinking about it the whole time, you know, that I'm not talking to her, because, you know, either we run from it or we obsess on it, and I'm the obsessor. And I'm like, I seem to remember some mention of a monkey and of her mother going back, and I mean, we ran. She asked, well, were you ahead of me or was I ahead of you? I said, I was ahead of you because you were up on the logs. And we get back, and she says, did Uncle Jay or Chris scare us with a monkey suit or a monkey mask? And her mother's like, no, you know, like, oh my God. I remember her face, just like, I'm sure I'm busy. No, you know. And so that is, I didn't see it. I didn't see it and get the door slammed on my memory. I just ran, and I heard those steps. I heard it, you know, walking around the tent. And so she still doesn't remember, but, you know, there's a ghostly event with a cat that I had that we took from San Jose. We moved up to Pendleton for not even a year and ended up going back to the same house. But I got a kidney infection, and this was like 80, let's see, I was a freshman. So it was like 82, 83. And I came out, and I'm worried about, you know, where's Tippy? And my mom says she's over there on the couch. So I go over and I give her love, and I'm happy she's okay. And I have no idea why. And I told my mother, don't let Tippy out. And she said she wouldn't. And I went back to sleep, and you know how cats are. They're persistent, mewing, drove my mother nuts, and so she let her out. And she got hit and killed by a car. And so we ended up, that was before the winter, and we ended up moving back about 6 months later, and my friend Lynette was over, and we come from the kitchen or probably the game room out in the garage, and we were going down the hall to my bedroom for some reason, and we get down there, and Lynette's first, and she sees Tippy sitting there at the corner of my parents' door and my door. And I had to have seen it too, seen her too, because I ran lickety split. And I told Lynette, I said, you know, see, I don't remember. I believe it, but I don't remember. And she's got the ability to pick up an item and describe it. The connections, the people, and yeah, she's been spoken to by spirits, by particularly a woman that she believes was accidentally died at the hands of her man, and she's almost certain that the woman was like, I've heard so many people's experiences where the man goes and, the big hairy forest guy comes in and, comes around while the man's gone. And she tells her man probably over and over, and he's a truck driver, and he drinks, and he gets flustered, and, he probably couldn't take it anymore. And, I mean, this woman was accidentally killed. And, I mean, so she's got that connection. I said, and I'm like, I'm nature. I'm the birds. I'm basically a cross between Grizzly Adams and Snow White without a dress. Animals, it's insane the way that animals are with me. And so it makes sense that, hey, yeah, I'm going to remember that. But you blocked it out, and hey, you remember seeing Tippy. I know I did, but I don't remember. And so then we'll go to May 11th of 2021. In 2017, I had been introduced to going out and collecting mushrooms, edible, not hallucinogenic. And I'm a picture person. I love nature, I love beauty, and I have an eye for photography. And so I saw this great calendar picture of this log, a big tree, probably bigger around, or maybe about as big around as what you can make a circle with your arms. And it's going straight into the forest, framed, a bit rounded and broken up of the opening. And it's just beautiful. So I take a picture and I go in, and I'm like in awe and filled with, I don't know, I don't know if it was apprehension. I was very anxious. Because my conscience may not have been being out loud about it, but deep down inside, I knew that these trees had been pulled out of the ground and shoved back in top side down. And so I wanted to get these pictures again. I'd lost the phone, like everybody goes through phones. And so I wanted to reclaim those pictures. And I went up like 3 or 4 times. I started out about mid-April, and too much snow. Couldn't nearly get up there. And then the time before I made it, I walked up a little bit. And it's, I got this video that's quite long because I document pretty much everything I can, and then decide if it's keepable, whatnot. And so I'm walking down the road and I'm grumbling and I'm holding my camera and my phone out in front of me filming, and I end up, and I find this like 9 months later. I find what is, unmistakable. Without a doubt, it is all one color. It's not the gentleman that I did film later in the rearview mirror. He was walking up toward me, and I'm like, oh, go away. Don't come up here, grumbling. And I see him, and, the first subject, the one all brown, was further down and in front of his van, but I'm sorry, if that dude had been down there where that being was, I'd have been able to tell he was wearing different colors, and they certainly weren't all dark. And so I'm like, wow. I mean, I just catch all this stuff that's crazy. But
Lisa, could you share where the kind of region that happened in, just so listeners can picture where it is that you're, if
so
possible.
Many people talk about it. It is Wildcat Mountain Road in Estacada.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So then I go back May 11th, and I can make it. And it's like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, I get in there, and I'm disappointed. It's hard for me to recognize it because, I mean, gosh, it had only been 4 years of wear and tear. Must have been a lot of big feet going up and down that log, because when I took the first picture of it, I wished I had that darn picture. The log was, the big tree was clearly sticking up off of the ground, and so it had the rounded edges, and it just looked like somebody had started cutting it to cut boards off of it. And just now it's like, now there's hardly any tree that you can see. It's really soft and mushy, but I get in there, and I can feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack, because I mean, my breathing, in my head, I am more concerned about man than I am animal. And I mean, I have bear spray in the van. But I'm just like, I'm upset because I can't find, the mama tree that I taken a picture of, what looked like a mama tree saying no, 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 to a little one holding its arms out looking like it's pleading. And that was 2 of the 3 trees that had their roots sticking up like their limbs should have been. And and then the bigger one, it didn't have any moss on it in 17, but it is covered in moss now. And so I felt like, I was going to spontaneously combust. I'm looking in that picture, looking back in the dark. I'm looking for dark stuff. I didn't even think to look closer to me when I finally noticed, like, wow, here's these 2 shiny, there's red that there isn't anywhere else. And my little admirer, that I call him, was backed up against a tree and looking over his right shoulder. Looks like he's got green eyes. And then his big sibling was in a tree probably about maybe 20 feet to his right and back a little bit, and about 40 feet from me, and the little one was about 30 feet from me. And the big one, he's showing from about the edge of his shoulder down to his elbow. And I later found a footprint with my son there at that tree, facing the tree. So he wasn't peeking. I didn't catch him peeking. He was just standing there thinking he couldn't be seen. But so then
sorry, Lisa, real quick, that what you saw, was that through a thermal, or did you see that you saw that face to face, like you were looking at the creatures?
No, I was standing there feeling them.
Okay.
And I saw them in my pictures.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I took a picture.
Yep.
And I have that on my phone. Yeah. One time I was going up there. I was really upset, and I would, once I realized they were there, I would go up there and talk to them, And so I go up there one time, and I'm venting to them, or I want to vent to them. I'm really bad day. I pulled over to let somebody around me because I don't like people riding in my trunk. And behind them was an officer. And I don't have I didn't have a back plate at the time, that, or I was, my tags were no good. But he pulled me over, and, I was real honest with him. What I was doing. In long story short, I ended up showing him my phone and him wanting to know if he could touch it. I said, well, the picture won't blow up because it's on, it's the screen on my phone. And he says to me and the red, these guys are red. Me and my wife just bought a house on Wildcat Mountain Road, and I think we have one living on our property.
Wow! And this is a police officer that's saying this.
Yeah, he was Clackamas County Sheriff.
Oh wow!
And before I got into that, he says I said, I just need to go up and, be with nature and, yada, yada. And he says, you aren't going to stay the night, are you? And later, just a few minutes later, I realized why he was concerned about that. A lot of stuff has happened on Wildcat. When I first moved up here in 86, my boyfriend ended up later being my husband and now ex. He said, people were, a lot of bodies have been found up on Wildcat.
Real quick, I had a gentleman who called in from, let me pull up a map real quick. It's south of, down in Colton. He called from Colton, and he was talking about Estacada and saying that there's a lot of missing people in that area, usually.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can verify that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people that go missing everywhere. It's just that, unless you're local, it's hard to find out because, they used to tell you how people died in the papers and at least in their obituaries. They don't tell you, they leave all that out, and they do a lot of lying about what was the cause of death when they do find the bodies. When I was, my mom was born in 1943. She was born and raised in Michigan. And I think it had to have been the only reason she would have told me something like this was if I was going to be going out into the woods. When she was a little girl and I found it, I was like, I found it. I looked up between, she was born in 1943, so like 1949 to 1952 or something. She said that a little boy or girl was drug off into the woods by a bear, and the mother followed after it, beating it with a broom, chasing it, and the bear wouldn't let go, and the child died. And I found that article. They described the bear as holding it under its arm like a football and running away.
That's no bear.
Oh, right.
No.
Yeah.
That's impossible for a bear to do.
Right.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the people that, when something scares you and your psyche just, isn't cracked up to accept it, you're going to do everything you can, anything possible, to avoid it. That's why, Lynette and I remain friends. That doesn't happen very often. She wasn't fully closed off to it. I mean, it probably helps that we were 7, 8 years old. But, Steve Isdall, I remember listening to him comment on, some guy or woman, whatever, sharing an experience that they had with several friends and, lost a friend. There's the guy that, he still has a brother-in-law, but they had an experience together, and now he really doesn't have a brother-in-law. I mean, if it's something you can't accept, then you're not going to have anything to do with anybody who's tied to it. And it's really sad. But anyway, so that was May 11th. Then I think I must have ordered my Fluor, my thermal after that. For big hairy people walking around on 2 feet and 4-legged hairies, because I wanted to go camping with my son and wanted that safety net, I guess. And let's see, it was May, June, July was okay. Then in July, July 4th, I found a bunny, a baby cottontail here in the road. And it looked like a little round ball. And I was like, oh my gosh, I caught it. I got food for it. I ended up feeding it with the wrong thing, a plastic dropper. And I'd read somewhere where they said that trying to do this isn't for the faint of heart. And on the 7th, I went to feed it, and she wouldn't eat. And I knew what had happened. That, I looked at the dropper, and there were a couple scrapes on it, and she ingested just the smallest amount of plastic, and it was going to kill her. And I got 2 videos. One of them is up there talking about it that I just put up, and it says, it says, this is why I had my sighting. Eyeballs. I saw it. I cried. It was just terrible. I've come to, not let anything die by itself if I can help it. And I knew that they screamed, and I was like, oh, I can't do it. If this thing screams, So I kissed it, said sorry, and I put it in the cage, and I went up Wildcat. And I got up there, and I'm, talking out the window to them. If I see the first time I saw a helicopter, I warned them, hey, they're looking for you. They can see you. They hunt you, telling them, I wish I could live out there with you. And, if I have to come back down here again and do another life, I'd rather be a big, hairy forest person than, than a little hairless one. And told him about the bunny, and ended up, when I didn't want to drive home at night. I usually did that, but being upset like I was, I didn't want to. And so, I told him, I don't want to go, because I know as soon as I leave, I'm going to start thinking about the bunny, and I'm going to start crying. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go. You guys have a good night down at the creek. Started up my van and started driving off in first gear, because I like to look everywhere and just go really slow. I didn't get 100 feet, and the tears started frickin' rolling down my face. And so I put on my sunglasses so anybody coming up wouldn't take a look at me and wonder what the heck my problem was. And I get down to, it's the first creek, if you actually look at it on Google Maps. And I believe it's Trout Creek. Yeah. There's Cedar Creek and Alder Creek up there too, but I believe it's Trout Creek. And coming down, it is a long turn to the left. And I get just to where I can see there's a forest, there's a logging road, a blue gate on the right, and analyzing it and thinking back on it so many times, I know that this being was standing there waiting for me, because they weren't in mid-step, they were not taking steps. They were standing still and then stepped from there. And they took 3 steps up a small incline, and then they were gone. And I thought to myself, where are the other 2 legs? And then I laughed out loud, because they had to have been holding a bushy shrub in front of them. so that I would only see them. I saw them from about mid-torso down because they wanted me to stop crying. And I immediately did. As soon as I saw that, I immediately stopped crying and, laughed because that would have been a funny-looking deer, the way it was walking. And, I grew up watching old movies with my mother, and I love all the Peter Sellers Pink Panther movies. And the one with David Niven and Robert Wagner, what is it, Shot in the Dark, it's, oh gosh. Well, there's a masquerade ball or party, and there's a couple people in a gorilla suit, and then there's two people in a horse suit, and that's what I pictured was the way that their legs were bending going up this hill, and I thought, boy, what are they wearing, Carhartts? Everything's all the same color. And I laughed, and I felt like they cared. To stop those tears from my heart breaking over that little bunny. And then it was like, well, they understood me. They clearly understood me. That picture that is on my YouTube of those eyes, that's out of a 26-minute video that after I'd seen things and it had been catching things, I started going back and watching other stuff and doing some frame by frame and looking at stuff. And that day, I was complaining about my daughter impaling me, breaking my heart. And I hear what sounds like a plastic bag or a tarp. And I get out and I'm talking about it. And I'm like, well, I hear it out there. I start talking like I'm talking to them, I said, well, what was it? Or was that you? I'm filming, and then this rock, and I can't see it unless I go frame by frame. And it's really frustrating because I lost that ability on, they axed it off of the Microsoft. So I'm screwed on that, but it comes just a little bitty bubble comes flying out into the gravel road, and I'm just like, wow. On cue. Let's see. And so then after that July, it started nothing. That was July 7th. August 10th, something happened, but I don't know if, I think it had to have been, it was after that I knew I had seen it. I had seen one with my own eyes, and I knew for sure that what I saw in the pictures were real because that was probably I think it was the sibling that was hiding behind the further back tree in that picture. But I want to go walk down this one Blue Gate logging road to look for mushrooms during the day. But I'm too scared to. I'm too worried. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I have that thermal. And it records during the day, or gets stuff during the day too. So this video is like 4 minutes, just under 5 minutes. And I'm panning around and looking, still getting used to the thermal. And I end up finally walking around the gate. And I think I stepped about 14 steps based on how the camera was kind of moving before I see a heat signature. And I stop. And it's my little admirer. I just know it. In the back of my head, I know it. And it's running. It's kind of hilly in there. I go back and I show the area in regular video. It's open in there and hilly. And he's running over and wants to hide behind a tree. Thinks I'm going to go walking down that road. And I'm stopping and watching. And he gets behind this tree and he looks and he realizes that I'm looking at him and seeing him. And he goes into what, the Native Americans have so many different, the different native clans, Cherokee, the different types have different names. And I heard one where they refer to them as like the man who leans when he runs, goes into a almost like falling flat on his face in a run, taking off. So he does that really quick. And that scared me. And I turn and I start running back to the van. And then I get down there, and when I scroll back looking, I'm like, all right, where'd you go? And I didn't even think about it till much later that I said little, because I knew it was. And they turned out to be probably about 4 feet tall. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I ended up getting Big Boy is in it too, across on the other side in the trees. And then I think I see my little admirer stuck up against a tree, trying to blend in and wait, staying still, because there's a bit more of a heat signature there. And then I only catch this going frame by frame. Probably big brother or sister. I think there's only 3 of them. There could be a female, and maybe I just haven't seen her or couldn't tell that it was her, but somebody is pushing on a snag, and it's going back and forth a little bit, like they're trying to distract me. And I ended up turning and running back to the van. It looked like I would have seen it, but I didn't. I was just like, I'd had enough, my nerves. And let's see, so that then I've heard so many people talk about them knowing, they know you're going to go out there before you get there type stuff. And I had made an appointment at my mechanic's right down the street. I live in Boring. And I made it a month out for August 10th. And I get down there. He's going to be working on it a long time. I can't remember what he was doing. But I bring my chair and I bring drinks and I'm set up to go sit around on the side of the building in the shade and wait. And I'm sitting there and not long, I didn't send me any pictures, but I've got pictures where I notice footprints in the tan bark where it had to have rained, and it was, they were mushed down. And they were pretty darn big. I mean, it looked probably about close to 20 inches, like the print that I sent you a picture of in the video. And they're going back. I follow them, and they're going back quite a stride between them. And he sits down, and I see where the butt was. The tan bark came up in a little bit of a and a little bit of a point and a long crack. and then there was 2 pieces of the roots from blackberries, the windy, curly stuff where craft stores will sell it. They'll sell that dried stuff. And there were 2 of them laying there right in front of the butt prints. And and I'm like, wow, did they know I was going to be here? I mean, clearly it looked like somebody sat and waited for a while. I mean, I couldn't see any other prints besides the big ones. And then, like, I don't know, a couple weeks later, I was sleeping out in the motorhome, and there's a walkway that, out in the grass that I take. It's a footpath. There's bricks out there, but, I go off to the left, and unless you're going to go over the bridge, nobody's going to be walking there. And somebody would have stepped on it. There was laid right there one of those little wiggly twigs from the blackberries. And I'm like, all right, what is this? I mean, there's none of this around here. There's no reason for it to be here. Just like down at my mechanics, there wasn't any of that stuff around to be having 2 little twigs sitting right out in front of a big butt print.
Sorry, this was in Boring, Oregon, you said?
Yeah. Oh. And like that's in August of 21. Then probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, a couple times I'm hearing some stuff out in the garage. And I know what things sound like. I know what we have around here. The only thing that I've ever seen going up and down the little seasonal creek that goes through our property is raccoons. And never have I known a raccoon to go into the garage. Birds, and just recently a kitten. But I know what those things sound like, and so many people have said, when they know that then you're fun to interact with. I mean, I've just been amazed at, like last night I'm hearing some hoos. We've got owls around here, and sometimes I really wonder, because they don't all get together and sing all crazy, a bunch of them competing with each other. But it was going hoo, and then there was a really weird sound, just a different tone, and so I decided to record. And right before I did, there was a hoo, and they just kept, and I'm like, okay, and I hit record, and it all stopped. And it had been going on for, stuff had been going on for like, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then it all stopped. Let's see. Okay. The fires in, what was it, 22? Yeah. 22, in the summer of 22. I wanted to go up there and go up Wildcat and be near them and get away from the smoke. And I'm driving up, and off from the left-hand side of the road, there's bushes, blackberries, rhododendrons, it's bush, it's trees, it's forest. And I catch something in my lights, and it's a twig that, I don't know, looked like it was about 8-10 inches long, come flying up out of the bushes, and it hits me in the wheel well in my driver's side. I don't know what that was all about. Well, actually I do. Dodge Park. If you look that up, it's well, it's close by. Dodge Park. I found footprints there. If you looked at the pictures that I sent you in the sand, the little one that I put my thumb and hand out to measure next to, something happened there right as the last big stage show hit, the big C word, Dodge Park used to let people camp.
Okay.
But then right before this all happened, something happened down there. And I heard it. I was told by someone at a store who has a friend down there that, there were shots fired. And, but the people that live down in that area, they do damage control. They were spoken to. They were a camp host, a husband and a wife who had dogs, and lots of dogs. And he had a heart attack and he died down there. But it wasn't just a fluke. I mean, I heard from the lady at the market that I used to go to, told me about it. But then when I spoke to a gentleman that I would always see, he'd come through and pick up cans and bottles, and he had this really big, huge white dog. And I mentioned it to him, and he said, "Oh, no, he had a heart attack," and but I could tell he wasn't being truthful with me. But what happened was, I do believe that he saw something. They got dumpsters. They got big blue, black lid dumpsters down there for people to put their trash in. And I think, I know where he could see that one dumpster on the way out. He could see two different dumpsters from where his home was. He probably saw something and took a shot. I was worried that he had killed it. He had killed a baby. But I think he didn't, and he got the crap scared out of him, and it literally gave him a heart attack. Because, he shot at it. There were shots fired. And, I mean, I think that, at first I thought he had killed a baby, and that really bothered me. And that's when I decided to carve. They got clay down there in that river. And if you're careful, you can carve it and put it someplace and let it, stash it in the river somewhere and let it continue to harden and become a rock. And so I carved, you'll see it on my YouTube. There's a picture of me holding a heart, and it says love on it. And on the back side, I carved a big foot and a little foot. And I put it down there. I sat there in the river, and I carved it. And this is like down there at Dodge Park. It's a confluence. The sandy, Bull Run comes into the Sandy, and that's why I prefer to be on Bull Run because the water is clear. The Sandy is cloudy and sandy. And so I'm sitting there, and I think I was watched. You know, I talk out loud to him if nobody's around, and I made that, and I left it. I hid it in the river, and wanted the mom to have it. The mother of the baby I thought died. And I come back the next morning before I'm like the first person in the gate. They open at 7. And I go down there and it's gone. And I'm like, okay, well, did she get it? Did you guys get it? Did you like it? You know, I hope you liked it. And I come back again the next day because, you know, it's hot and I can't stand being at home. And I took a video of what I found right where I had been sitting and carving that. And it was a bunch of fish, a bunch of eaten on dead steelhead. And I think your show, I think I was listening to somebody was, maybe it was Steve's, I don't know. Somebody mentioned how they would eat mushy, really icky, dead fish. And when I saw that there, I was like, okay, that's a sign. That was a sign for me. Then there was this is a bit woo right here. This is dancing light or orb, whatever you want to call it. When I knew that they were up Wildcat, and I wanted to bring them apples, I wanted to keep bringing them stuff, but I didn't want it to just all go to the deer. And I'm telling him, you know, I don't care if the deer have some. I just want to make sure that you're going to be here, you know, and I'm going to give them to you too. Is there any way you can let me know? Just for me to know that you will still be here. And I'm sitting in the dark on Wildcat at this one other place. It's a really big pull off where people have dumped a trailer, and people sometimes camp there, and it's got a big berm, and that's where I got the little admirer on video. And I look over and it's dark. It is black out. And I see looks like a star going, it's between these two trees, and it's going up and down and up like it's following a big paper clip, just up and down. And I took a video because I was trying to get it, and I didn't mention it in this one, and I accidentally must have deleted the one where I spoke about it but I'm freaking out. I'm like, I listened to it the other night, and it was like, wow, that really freaked me out. That, you know, and I was flustered because I couldn't record it. My camera wasn't able to see it, and it was like, well, I just got done telling them, give me a sign that only I'll know and see. Sure enough, I couldn't get it, but I got my reaction, and it's like, that's genuine right there. Let's see. So then, and I mean, I've had, there's been sightings. If you mentioned that Bigfoot map, there's some place where you can look on a map, and there's these little green Bigfoot that mark sightings.
Yep.
There have been sightings in Boring.
Absolutely.
And I go a back road down here, 372nd or something, that passes over the spring water trail and it goes up and runs into Palm Blad. And I'm going past this guy's house on the right that has a bunch of hunting dogs. He's got bears. They're hounds that sound like beagles. And he's got a tall fence. And there's a bunch of arborvitaes running along the roadside. And I had something thrown at me from, somebody must have been laying down on the ground and threw something out and hit my van because I didn't run over anything. Let's see. I'm so glad that I document stuff. Accidentally even, where I took my son down to, it's by Eagle Fern Park. It's right on, actually, North Fork Eagle Creek that dumps into Eagle Creek. And it's a free park. It's a free little pull off there. And across the road is a walking path that goes up on top of a butte and circles around and comes back down. And there's absolutely nothing up there. I met a woman that I asked her, I'd seen her walking and was still down there when she came back down, and asked her, she'd ever, heard any weird noises or anything strange up there. And she told me, yeah, she's had rocks thrown at her. And the same spot, I took my son there the next day after I wanted to gift them stuff, but I knew that there was a cat around that I was feeding cat food to keep it from climbing after the stuff that I was leaving for the big hairy forest people. And I pulled this one, kind of bit of a sucker off of an old dead tree, pulled it down, put it under my arm, started cutting twigs to impale. They were hot dogs, or maybe they were the little sausages that I was bringing them. And it slipped out from underneath my arm. And I had to reach back up and bring it down, work on it again, slipped up, lost it, grabbed it again, finally got it done. And I took a video of it and showed, I go, here's this. And then I put over to the right, I broke the little chocolate wax donuts in half and put them all over in the tree or bush right there with it. And then the next night I came back with my son and the headlights hit it. And I'm like, Josh, look at this. I go out and I inspect it, and oh my Lord, it was nicely woven and held. There was another little sucker coming out of the ground from something else that they freaking attached it to and wove it to, so that I could just easily put that stuff on there hands-free. And it sent a bit of a I had a smile on my face, but it sent a shiver through me, because I was like, wow, I'm looking over. It's like somebody was sitting up on that hill watching me. oh Lord. And I found a place where, I called it a Bigfoot picnic area, because there were a bunch of deer bones, bare, white deer bones. Like, wow, yeah, somebody sat here and had a meal. I've got I've got somewhere on there on my channel is what did I? It's a minute and 48 seconds. It says that it's a minute and 48 seconds into it, where it's probably about 12 o'clock at night, and I have my thermal rolled up in my passenger window. I'm facing the creek, and my thermal is facing back toward the road. And I didn't look through it really good to see how my view was, because it's kind of skewed. It's not centered. It's tilted to the right. And here comes a big hairy person walking down the side of the road. And you can see when they see me, and they start pausing, and they'll duck down, and then they end up down in a bit of a dip, or a bit of a bowl in the bushes, and they stay there. My thermal records. They stayed there for, 20 minutes before I start moving the camera to get okay, let's gonna do a panoramic over the period. So we'll be here for a little bit, then I'll scoot it to the left a little bit, and then I'll wait a while, and so on. And he throws a rock, and he comes up, and he gets caught behind a rock, and then I move it again, and that's when he actually runs out in front of my van. And he's tall. I mean, the tree that's in the video is unmistakable, and I've got many videos and pictures of it there in that little parking lot. And when you look at it in slow motion, when I slowed it down on my computer and then put it on YouTube and slowed it down to 25, it goes so slow that you can indeed tell that it is a male, and it goes so fast in the regular speed. It's just like, I'm watching the video, I'm like, what was that? I mean, it's so fast that the camera can't get all of the form. And so, yeah.
Real quick, sorry.
Let's see.
Real quick, because
Sure.
that part's extremely interesting. Those are some of the clips you sent to me, right, in the email?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that thermal those thermal clips are so interesting, because yes, there is. I mean, I've seen a lot, and there is a bipedal figure in those clips. It's no mistake. Were you able to try to do any tests to see, figure out how tall that figure was that you captured on thermal? Any
Yes.
comparison testing or?
That is video. I show you the bit of the video, and I'm freaking out because I'm like, you can hear it in my voice that I'm in flight mode, realizing how big he is. And I measured a stick. I have a love for wood. I just absolutely love, the stripped river, soft, or dried out wood. I've got a love for wood. What the heck? I measured the stick, and then, I can tell right where he comes out at. I can see, I show you the bow, I show you a picture of that spot during the day. And I have somebody go over and somebody shows up there, and I ask him to take a thermal. He doesn't do a real good job, but where he comes out at from his waist up, I come out from behind that, waving my hand, and you can't see me. He was 10 feet tall. And he's got 20-inch prints.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's 10 feet tall.
Remind me again,
and
the area that this was in again?
This was at Eagle Fern on, let me see here.
Eagle Fern Park.
The name of the wood. Yes.
Okay.
It's, if you're, there's a road right by it that is called, it starts with an M, I think. Eagle Fern Park. And I measured. I didn't realize that I could hold my thumb on my screen and keep stretching out and go all the way out to where I first encountered them. They're up Wildcat. It is exactly 10 miles as the bird flies that they go for a park. Okay, it is dummy. Okay. The name of the road, it's Kitzmiller, Southeast KITZ Miller Road. And, they go up and down that. I mean, there's a spot that I pulled over. The creek runs, North Fork Eagle Creek runs all the way up there, and I can hear it it's not even Wildcat anymore. It's a forest development road, and the spot that I sat at was at the beginning of the trail 105 going up to Wildcat Mountain Trailhead. And I can hear North Fork Eagle Creek sitting there. And I mean, there's a spot where I took a video walking back in there and was going to check it out, but it was like, oh, well, there's one break. I mean, bow down. They were breaking down limbs and making it so I had to duck underneath them. And when I ducked underneath the third one, I was like, I don't think anybody's wanted back here. And along that road is where I got that footprint. And I wish I had casting material to do it. Let's see. Down there at the one spot, that's where, right across from him walking out from behind that tree is that little gravel parking lot. You can fit 3 or 4 cars in there if you're good. And he knew. I mean, he from where it was recorded at, he was right across the road, and he was probably 50 feet away, 60 feet away. He knew we were there. And then later that night, earlier he's down in the creek, and he tosses a pebble to distract my son, and he looks like he's on shore when he tosses the pebble, but then a few minutes later it looks like he's laying out in the creek on his back. And let's see, there's one where I got it and I was like, wow, what's this? It was the one where he stands up, big and hairy, stuck like trucks. Oh, I called it Big Boy Rising for his evening.
Okay.
And it's got a heart. going around him up there on the thumbnail. And I went and I did a comparison. I went ahead and I set up my thermal during the day in my window like it was when I was getting him, and or to match the same, to match the screen. I got it as close as I could, and then I walked down there. And I walked up the hillside to where I thought I had found where he come up from. But no, there was another one there, but it never stood up. There's a little bitty dot of a heat signature below him. And that's where I went. And I was like, oh my gosh, he was a lot further up that hill. So he was further away and higher up. So, as big as he looks coming up from his little spot up there, he's huge, I mean, if he's 10 foot tall, he's got at least 4 or 5 foot shoulders. And, standing there when I went over with my stick to measure, my voice is shaking. I mean, you can hear it, and I'm breathing heavy like I'd been running or something. And I stand there and I realize, oh my gosh, if he was standing here, I don't even want to think about it. I mean, my head's, my head's not even up to his belly button.
That's wild.
Yeah, and then, that night that I got squeezed like Charmin was actually, I just put this clip up, and it's only 42 seconds. It says, the night I was squeezed like Charmin. And I don't know. My son's got the camera, but down on the creek, somebody comes up from, it's tall. It is from where he's standing, his head sticks up. The creek is probably down 10 feet, maybe. And he stood up on the hillside and peeked up over the roots of a tree, and he was just there for, a few seconds, or not even a whole second. It was crazy. That was the night that I've got video footage of the older sibling and the younger one running toward down the creek. And I mean, when this happened, I'm like looking at the video, I'm talking to myself and I process it out loud, and I'm like, and I'm right there. I went back. It was during the day, and I'm talking to the camera and saying that, if that couldn't have been their mother, because their mother wouldn't have been running ahead of them and leaving them behind. It had to have been an older brother or sister. And that's when it hit me. It was like, oh my gosh, this group is the same one from up Wildcat, and they just come down the creek. And you can see where the stick gets tossed, comes out, and it bounces in the grass. And that's when I had told my son had the thermal, and I had the spotlight, and I said, did you hear that? And he's like, what? And I said, it sounded like something whooshing through grass, like a foot or a bunny rabbit or something. And he's all, where? And I pointed the spotlight out to the right in front of me, about, I don't know, 10 feet out, and it's about there. And he's like, I'm ready to go. I want to go. He hadn't told me what he'd been catching on the thermal. But I told him, I said, they're here. I know, I can tell they're here, but they don't mean any harm. And so after finding that on the video, I was like, well, I was just off. You know how if you turn your head, you can be mistaken to where the sound's coming from? It was actually to the left that stick landed. And I found it, and it matches the one in the video. And it's in the dash of my van that they threw at me. Well, they didn't throw at me, they just threw it out there to distract. And then shortly after that, he wanted to leave. And I did a build on my van. It is wall to wall. All the inside is tongue and groove pine. And on my door, you can't see through the window anymore. It's all paneled, and I made a pull-down table that would be held up with little chains. And from it getting slammed shut, because, everybody's got to slam the door shut, it gets, compromised, and it would fall down, and I'd have to pull it up before I, put it back up before I could open the door. And so it had done that when my son got out and shut it. And he was like, I'm ready to go. And he goes around to the door, and he opens it and he gets up. I'm like, hold on, I've got to go in there and fix it so you can get in. And I'm wearing the same rubber boots that is in that picture where I found that big 20-inch print. And so I get in, and I've taken out my passenger seat, and it is got a case in it, a fireproof case in it to put a wood stove in. And I've got a bench, like a pull-down bench in the middle. And I'm laying across that on my belly, diagonally to fix the door. My feet are hanging out my driver's door. And he's right, the door's open a little bit, like, I don't know, 3 inches. He can see that I'm there, and I can see that he's there, and he's really wanting in. And all of a sudden, I feel on my right foot a gradual squeeze, very slowly and softly, like they're feeling that rubber, they're feeling the rubber boot, and that it's giving, I'm not filling it out. So they're waiting till they run into my flesh. And I didn't hear myself, but I know I started kicking and flailing, and the thought that was going through my head was, oh my God, I'm going to get drug out by a Bigfoot. I had to have been screaming. I had to have made noise, because my son come running around the front of the van, and by the time he gets to my door, I'm standing there outside on the ground, and I said, did you grab my foot? And he's like, yeah. And God bless him, I love him to pieces. But he reminds me of Eeyore. And he did not squeeze me. He was right outside the door when that happened. But, our denial system works to protect us. And when we got home, we came out into the motorhome, and I downloaded that stuff and was thinking about what had happened. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You lied. Your denial worked to save you too, to protect us, because I said, picture it. If I had said, did you grab my foot, my ankle? And you just said no, and you'd seen all that? We'd have gotten in the van, and I would have peeled out of there. We very likely would have ended up going into Eagle Creek when I turned right on that bridge. Yeah, I mean, and so that was the last time he went with me, and it kind of did, it did to him what I was talking about earlier, that it happens to some people. I mean, he fell off the face of the earth. He's homeless. Last time I heard, he was living under a bridge in Portland, and I don't know what happened to him, but I know that it messed with him. I mean, we went to, on that road going out to Eaglefern Park is another place we call the Fish Ladder. It's on the right-hand side, and, people aren't supposed to go in. They've been trying for years to keep people out, but good luck with that. It's fun, and it's beautiful. And I took him down there to see how high the water was. And when we come back, I was ahead of him walking down the path back to the van. And he was probably about 40 feet behind me, and he heard a growl. He got growled at. And that scared the crap out of him. And, they seem to, for the most part, have a hard time with men. And I was really surprised that they got growled at, but, maybe someone will hear this. Maybe whoever did this will remember, of course, and recognize that it was them, and write in the comments or send you an email or something. But it was snowing. It was still snow on the ground up Wildcat. I took my son with me, and we stopped at where I first got my little admirer on thermal. And I go out, and he's skinny and got any meat on his bones, so he gets cold easy, and he wouldn't come out with me. So I walk across the road, and I find big footprints. I mean, they look like a shoe because they're rounded, but I put my foot next to it, and it's not a snowshoe, and it's huge. And right there, going along with it, are some wolf prints. And so then I cross the road to go toward the logging road, and I'm always looking down, and I'm recording, and I'm like, a handprint. It was a big handprint, and I put my hand over it. It's like 2 inches, more than 2 inches longer fingers, and I go into immediate flight, sounding like I'm freaking out and just ran a marathon. And and I'm like, wow, okay. I keep going, go around the gate, and I see some prints that look like, those look suspicious. And I keep going down, and I didn't notice it, but in my video, there is a blue bottle to the left. And I end up noticing something further down the road on the right-hand edge of the gravel road. And I walk down there, and I'm like, what's this? It looks like, kind of like, a paint can or a big coffee can, only it's plastic. I didn't bother to continue reading the applications on it, but I think somebody wanted to get some prints, wanted to do some, plaster or some molds, because you can do them in the snow. I didn't realize that. Got to have the right stuff. And I think, like, maybe there was a truck there, and that handprint was him, getting down and looking around the back of his truck, down the road at the guy. And then seeing and knowing that he wants to take a cast of his footprint, and it probably pissed him off. I found a pile of, I said, oh, this looks like Pastor Barrett. And it's powdery and white. And that's when I looked down and I saw that container, probably about 20 or 30 feet down the road, maybe 40 feet. And, it's covered in small, not dense, but the paper has been, it looks like a pattern, like it got hit against something that just took little pieces of paper off. It was really weird, but it also looks like it got angrily squeezed and broken, like not a pop can, but something brittle. And yeah, I think somebody had the poop scared out of them when they were going to take a cast. Oh, and there were some tissues down there too that really freaked me out. It scared me out. I walked down filming at night with the flash on and got the tennis shoes, put my foot next to it laying there, and then turned and ran back. I know that they have been here. Oh, wait. Mind speak. That was it. After my little admirer squeezed me like Charmin, I was like, I'd go there and I'd talk out the window to him in the dark. And I hung my hand out the door, out the window, and I'm telling him, if you want, my little admirer, if you want to touch me, let me know, give me some sort of, sound, sign, like a baby, something happy, like a baby cooing is what I said, like a baby cooing. And kept talking and blah. And I end up, I go back a lot, but I think it was about a week later. For some reason, I needed something out of the back, and I didn't want to crawl through from the inside. So I got my lamp and went around to my slider and opened it, and I was looking around for stuff in there, for something, and all of a sudden I hear like a really loud panting, happy puppies is what it sounded like. I whirled around screaming. I still cannot to this day believe how I screamed. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. It was so loud. And nothing. There was nothing there. So I get back in my van and it's like, wow, did that just happen? I mean, I knew what it was. I knew what it was. And there, when you're born with an ability, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it right from the gate. You've got to learn how to and, control it. And I think clearly that this little person and this little hairy person needed to work on their volume because it was really, really loud. Oh, I'm starting to shiver because I'm sitting out in my hippie hot tub that isn't hot to stay cooling in the heat. Oh gosh, I can't believe this. I've never. I mean, this is just, it's a bit, not overwhelming. Well, maybe a little bit to be able to talk about all this stuff. And just, I think about all the people that you've had on that, I can relate to, I mean, when I showed up there on Wildcat and that little guy was looking out at me from behind that tree, I think he was in awe. He was like, I think they can see our auras. They can, it's like we have a neon sign flashing, hanging around our neck that, they can tell. They can tell that you're a good person. And I can't believe that, hearing somebody say that all the bad experiences were red ones, but I mean, that's where they are. I mean, clearly, because, someone who wants to kill you or eat you isn't going to run down the road and wait for you to stop you from crying by showing themselves to you like that.
Right.
And, he covered his face up, so he didn't make me start crying for a different reason.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
And I've heard a time or two where one hid behind, they saw him sitting up on a cliffside on the road, and they were sitting there holding a tree right between their legs in front of them. I mean, they are a people. They are, and they have a language. They understand us. That I'm sure they're gonna live longer because they are grounded. They are not wearing rubber soles and ungrounded from the earth. Yeah. And I mean, Patty, she's got hair on her face. She, she looks different. There's more than just one kind out there. I mean, there are ones that look human, that look like, a Neanderthal, big brows.
If you go off of the reports that I've received, there are different kinds. They look different in different parts of the U.S. That's without question, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Like the ones down in Florida are smaller.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep. The further south you get, they are smaller for sure. And reverse, the further north you get, up in Alaska, they're much bigger. And up north in Canada. But Lisa, the things you've experienced so far over the years is just incredible. But I would love to, just while I've got you here, have you ever heard of anything going on south of you? Like, I'm going to be down in the Willamette National Forest soon, down near like Oak Ridge area. Have you ever heard of anything happening down there?
Yeah. No, but I have been listening to you say how you're going to go down there, and I've heard some of the stuff that was talked about that, what was that guy's name that you just had on, that his stuff happened around there really close?
Oh, there's been multiple. Yeah, there's been the gentleman out by Spirit Lake. There's been the gentleman where his dog got thrown up in a tree. I guess that was a little bit west of Oak Ridge, but yeah, there's just man, Oregon is full of wild stories, but also really, interesting stories like the ones you've shared that maybe are not super aggressive, but are also very interesting to analyze, how they are interacting with humans, in the way that you've been sharing.
I think you can kind of look at it and if you compare it to us, we are raised being told stories, being told, experiences, okay, well, this kind of stuff happened in Mississippi. So, they grew up hearing about, Billy Joe or, Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. You hear different stuff. You're raised on different histories. And, I heard someone say that they are told when they reach a certain age, they are told about us little hairless ones. And, I can only imagine the things that they're told because we are not nice. Or I shouldn't say we, because I'm not a mouse in somebody's pocket. They're not nice. And, I mean, that's why, they know what guns are. There's a reason why they don't like us, why they don't trust us. And if they can tell a person's intent, that says a lot about missing 411 the hunted, I mean, when, they're looking for another hunter and they accidentally find a young man shoved up underneath the root system of a tree, who's going to do that? People ask about the red eyes. I listened to some guy interviewing Steve Isdall, and, it's like they got this little problem with the eyes illuminating from within. And it's like, well, I'm a thinker. I'm a truth seeker. I dissect. And we know about, octopus, sea creatures. They can change their colors, lizards. And so there's a reason for it. It doesn't just happen. I mean, they're either hunting. It's a survival thing. It's either food or safety. And our eyes have rods in them that are for night vision. And I heard somewhere quite a while back that we have somewhere between 7 and 9 in each eye. And Bigfoot and the Sasquatch, big hairy folks, they don't like being called that other stuff. They can see quite clearly at night. I mean, there's this one guy, I haven't seen him put up any videos in a long time, but he's called We Do It Outdoors, and he actually cut out some of one of my favorite videos of his, but I recorded that part, where he gets drug off. He's out with his brother, I think, and he gets drug off, and you see at the end of the video, you see upside down a foot, 2 feet walking away, but he took this one thermal, and his device, he holds it out in front of him like it's for an electrician or something. It's really way more expensive than mine was, I'm sure. But he's holding, he's like, you see him, you see the big guy walk along, reach out, push up a branch out of the way and step over probably a log. But it is pitch black out there. So I think that, you know, they know that maybe they have a thermal. Maybe that is actually thermal viewing, way to view, and that the AI that they made, the thermal imaging that I have, was reverse engineered, and they would need a big hairy person to dissect. And, you know, I don't know, or maybe it's infrared, but I do believe that glow comes from their rods. You know, they do something. Maybe, you know, maybe it has to do with, like when that guy said he was spoken to, or, you know, this big hairy guy stepped out. He had seen his arm and his hand on a tree, and he stepped out and was standing there, and he clenched his fist back and forth, like in anger, maybe, possibly, and he felt something come to him, like, you know, what are you doing here? What is your, you know, purpose, type thing? And he felt inclined to speak out loud and tell him that he didn't intend him any harm, that he only carries, you know, the sidearm out of habit. And but the big hairy guy's eyes went red. They started glowing. And so I'd have to re-listen to that and see exactly when they started glowing. But it's, you know, little marine life deep down in the ocean, organisms have something in their system that can light up like a neon light. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities, and I can really easily imagine it.
Absolutely. And it's so many interesting theories and things to consider. But Lisa, it has been such an interesting chat. Your different things you've encountered. I'm just thankful we were able to get you on in order that you'd be able to share the whole story. So thank you for coming on.
I've seen I've got footage of fairies too. Right down there at that same spot where I got squeezed.
Oh, wow.
And they're on there too. They're, you know, first video, the inauguration or whatever of Fairy Hill. I call it Fairy Hill. You know, these things they seem to be about 2 inches around and flat. You know, when it went up a tree. I've got footage of a shrew on that same weird tree that the big guy went in front of and showed his gender. I've got a shrew going up that tree. So, you know, this 1 o'clock in the morning, it's not a spider, it's not a squirrel, it's not a bird going around, hopping from tree to tree, looking like, going through holes that are all over that landscape. Like, they look like, you know, funnel webs, how, you know, the formation of it is not something that rodents did when they're out off of the ground, away from the ground, and they're in the shrubs, and they're holes, they're little tunnels made into the foliage. And through some of the knotty the tree roots out there on the hill. I mean, and they knew, you know, that night that I got that first footage, I'm like, what are these? I'm thinking, what came to mind was Tinkerbell, because some of some of the footage, you see a bit of a thermal jet stream, you know, like when Tinkerbell goes running off and you see the glitter going behind her, it's a bit of a heat signature from them going through the air. And that night I went home and I'm looking for fairy stuff, and I happened upon some guy that there was a website where he started a collection like in 1452 or something, way back. And all these creatures had been caught and kept in wooden boxes. And there was one of a fairy that had a Queen Elizabeth penny sitting next to it. And you look at that penny next to that figure, and that thing looks like it's about 2 inches tall. And on my on my YouTube, there's a video, very short, and it says, WTF is that? And there's the thumbnail is a picture of that fairy, and then a piece of video that I accidentally caught something flying around in a bush that, you know, it wasn't an insect, it wasn't a bird. And I mean, they're huge. They're down at the water when Josh is getting that where the one threw a rock, when it like comes up out of the water and does an arch and then goes back down. I've got eyeballs that are that have got to be big boy, and they're like 10 foot up this tree that's behind me. I mean, I've got all kinds of stuff.
That it feels like there's going to be definitely more things to talk about in the future, I would imagine. Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah. Well, I pissed one off up Lolo Pass.
Did you?
When I left the fire burning.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. He hit the side of my van and knocked a pot off of a shelf. I mean, I was startled by the pot, but I didn't know what it was. And then the next day I get up and I go out and I'm like, wow, all that wood burned all the way off. I had a big pile out there. But then I moved to a different spot next door because the guy left and I wanted that spot. And I was going off and I was recording. I was going off and I was going to cut some wood. And I looked off in the bushes and I found a very specific, recognizable piece of wood that I have out in the motorhome that he took off of the fire. He dismantled my fire and he took it, walked a little walkway down on the edge of the creek, and he threw it off in the bushes, and I found it, and I apologized and told him, you know, I've got gallons of water. I brought it down to the fire pit, and I said, see here, I've got water. I will not do that again. But I could feel him.
Wow.
I could feel him right there.
Did you see any tracks outside at all around the van or?
No, I didn't look, and I didn't realize that, you know, I thought I had just knocked it off because at that time I was sleeping with my head behind the driver's seat.
Sure. And
it goes diagonal from the driver's seat back to the left corner or right corner. So my head was down there and I just thought I'd knocked it off, but I didn't. He got peeved.
Extremely interesting stuff. Yeah. I hope that one interaction doesn't repeat itself in the future. It sounds like most of your interactions are pretty peaceful. So we'll hope that continues. But
which one? The squeeze one?
well, I guess the squeeze one. I mean, did that leave a bruise at all, or?
No,
Okay.
no. Gently squeezed me like a roll of Charmin.
Yeah.
Just gradual until he ran into my solid flesh.
So I would say that's a peaceful interaction, right? I mean, it could have been much worse for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was misunderstood, but then,
Right.
I mean, they knew when I said, give me a sign, something, a sound, something nice like a happy cooing baby. They didn't have a cooing baby to compare it to, but they were told, well, I'm thinking they're around dogs, so they know what a happy little puppy sounds like.
Right. So interesting. Lisa, I appreciate you coming on. Did you have any, as we start to wrap up our first time chatting together, did you have any closing thoughts about the Sasquatch you've said that as a forest people is how you've mentioned them a few times.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than them out there. I hope I never see a Dogman, but those eyes that I'm looking at right now on my page, it kind of looks like, at first I thought there was a bit of a white blaze going up the forehead, but that may not be. And out, I don't know, out in the sun, they can, depending on their skin, I've seen where there's one guy that I watch. His name is Sunny Vader. And he's got footage of the same big hairy guy over years, and I can tell he's got a white beard, and with his first video that was like, I don't know, 7 or 10 years ago, he looks like he is one big dread. Like he's nappy. It's not long and flowing or anything. And it just grew. It's like his hair got taller. And when he's got one video where there's a camera sitting up facing their tent, or facing the hill behind the tent, and here's this big figure creeping in behind the bushes. And he looks really dark. I heard somebody describe the same skin color, where it was like kind of a gray, kind of Indian looking, dark. There's no brown in it. I mean, it's like a smoky gray. But then when he starts creeping off stage right, the sun hits him through the shrubbery, and his skin turns white. His skin looks lighter. So, these squinty eyes, I look at it and really hope that it's not a Dogman. But when I looked, I mean, that being is about 8 feet tall at least, based on where it was standing. Up there on Wildcat.
Interesting stuff. It'd be interesting to see if there's other people that reach out in the comments that have had interactions in that same Wildcat area. I've heard a little bit about it from other people, but I think we might get some other things too. But Lisa, thank you so much for chatting tonight. It has been a pleasure.
If there's anybody in the area, in my area, that doesn't have somebody to go with, I would love somebody to, you know, go up there and, you know, I don't feel real safe, you know, being out by myself.
Sure. So, I'll put your YouTube channel in the description, and maybe people can reach out to you in the comments of that, or is there another way that they should reach out to you?
Well, they can reach out to me in the comments, or, you know, maybe if you don't mind if they emailed you.
So that's I will say that I don't do that anymore, because there have been ones where I have had to answer hundreds of emails, and it takes up my entire day. So I try to not do that game anymore. I apologize, but the comments might be a good deal. Yeah, if you don't have a direct email or anything. So just keep an eye on the comments, I suppose. So, but yeah, thank you for chatting tonight, Lisa. And I really recommend people check out Lisa's channel. There's some really interesting thermal footage shots on that channel, so definitely check that out. But thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremiah.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. If you've had any encounters in Oregon, which I'm sure there's probably a few of you out there, please feel free to reach out immediately. You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
Her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.